This is Extra Paycheck Podcast, episode number 84.
You're listening to Extra Paycheck Podcast, where you will learn how to build and grow your own successful online business. Now, here's your host, Alex Soul.
Welcome to yet another episode of Extra Paycheck Podcast. This is episode number 84, and today's episode is dedicated to SEO, search engine optimization, because it's important, because if you are an online business or if you're just thinking about starting your online business, you will come across that SEO notion and you will be asking yourself a lot of questions. What is it? How does it work? And how you can get ahead with it. So this is why I'm dedicating this whole episode to search engine optimization. Let's get right into it. What exactly is SEO and why is it important? Basically, SEO is a metrics by which search engines rank your website. As an easy example, when someone goes to Google and types any kind of a question or any kind of a keyword phrase in there, for instance, best TVs under $500. So the Google and other search engines will give you a list of websites results to your question or to your search. And your goal is to be listed as one of those websites. Now, if you look at Google specifically, usually you have two kinds of search results on there. The regular search results, the natural search results, which we earn through proper SEO, and their paid results as well, which you see in the form of ads. Now, ads are great and all of that, but there are a few issues. One of them being is that ads cost money. Second of all is that people often do not click on ads because they know they're ads and they know that it's just companies trying to make money out of them. So they will click on natural results, on links that are not paid for, because you can't pay for them. You have to gain them. And how do you get good search engine rankings? There are a lot of different things that go behind it, and Google, of course, and other search engines will not reveal their exact algorithms because they don't want us to kind of try to game that algorithm and try to get in the top of search engine results by, using some kind of tricks or something. But there are main guidelines and understandings of how it works and how you can earn good rankings in search engines using your website and using some of the techniques that I'm about to describe in this episode. First thing first, Google usually ranks websites depending on how relevant they are to the search. This is why when you are searching, once again, for best TV under $500, Google will not show you a page that talks about puppies or a diet or microphones or anything really, because their main goal is to show you a result the most relevant to your search. And Google is getting really, really good at understanding what is relevant, what is not. So the very first thing you have to pay a lot of attention to, and like anything else in business, in online business, there are no tricks, there are no shortcuts. You have to work hard to earn your rankings, and you have to invest some time into it. It's not going to happen overnight. So the most important thing, in my experience, is the quality of your content. You need to produce great content for your blog or your website. And I've been saying that all over my podcast, all over my blog, and I say it every time to everyone. If there was one thing that you had to do really, really well for your online business, for your blog, for your website, it has to be content. Your content has to be of high quality. And you might be scared right now because you might not really, you might be not so good at writing content or producing content, and you might not have a proper understanding or idea on how to create good content, how to write good articles. But that's just practice. The more you write, the better you get at it. I was really, really bad at creating content back when I just started, but with time, you get better. Well, there we go. First of all, you have to write good and relevant content. There are things like keyword research that comes to mind, where you could look up certain keyword metrics and try to figure out how many searches the certain keyword gets every month or every day. You could figure out, or try to figure out at least, what is your competition, how many other websites or blogs are competing for the very same keyword phrase, and so on. But I kind of learned to not spend too much time on that, because if we're gonna go into all of those details, if we're gonna go really, really deep trying to understand everything, single metric, we'll never get any work done. So just concentrate on writing your content, and that would be the main suggestion here. Another thing you have to concentrate on is your site speed. If your website loads very slowly, you will start losing rankings, or you will basically not get good rankings. This, once again, ends up being about Google and trying to make their customers happy. So if someone uses Google search and they land on a website and it takes that website 3 seconds, 4, 5, 6, 10 seconds to load, people will simply click the back button, or they will close the tab and do a new search. They aren't going to wait for your website to load. They don't care. They want results instantly, and they want relevant results to their search. There are many different tools to check out your website speed, and I'll link to some of those tools in the show notes for this episode. But you have to try to reduce your site speed as much as possible. One of the things you could do is use a proper hosting. As I've mentioned in other episodes, I use Host with Love. I really enjoy that company for hosting all of my websites, or most of my websites actually. Their loading speed is very, very fast. But it's not just about your hosting. There are other things like, I guess most of you listening using WordPress, and you might be using a theme which is really, really slow or broken or outdated, whatever that is. So you have to pay attention to your theme. I use Divi by Elegant Themes. It's a paid theme. It's premium. You have to pay money for it. And it's not all that much. It's about $50 or $60 a year or something like that. It's not expensive, but it's really, really fast. It's well done. It loads quickly, and it's mobile friendly as well. So it loads on smartphones and tablets really, really fast, which is another plus point for my rankings for my websites. So when Google sees my website loading faster than many other websites, they're trying to rank for that top 10 positions in Google. Of course, they will give me priority, because that's one of the things they're looking for, the site speed. Another thing that matters in site speed is images, the size of your images. And sometimes we just take a picture of something and we upload it to our website, and it's 5 megabytes, 10 megabytes these days for a picture, and that will kill your speed. That will make your website load super slowly, when in reality, you could have that image resized to 10 times smaller, even 100 times smaller than you have it from your camera. So pay attention to that and make sure you have images that are the smallest possible without really losing out on quality of that image. There are free plugins that do that. There are many different things that you could use to help you with image resizing, but that's another thing that you have to pay attention to if you want your website to load faster. This is also one of the reasons why I don't have all that much going on my website's homepage. If you look at my homepage, I only have a few links there, maybe one image. There isn't much going on because I want it to load faster. And every single page on my website, I try to keep it kind of minimalistic without too much stuff, without too much going on. So it loads faster. Once again, it's all about the speed of your website. Another thing you might consider is a caching plugin for your WordPress installation. It's a plugin that I will not go into details on how it works because it's too technical. It's too technical for me to understand, and let alone trying to explain how it works. But basically what the plugin does, it kind of keeps some of your website's information in memory. So when someone comes to your website, and especially when they come back to your website doesn't have to reload from scratch. Some of the elements or many elements of your website are already preloaded. So that person, when they come to your website, your website will only have to update the newest information that you added, and many other things are already there, which once again reduces the speed of your website loading. Really, really helpful things. And once again, I'll be linking to those plugins that I'm using in the show notes page, and I'm using, I believe, free ones. I don't pay for those plugins. They free. You can find them on WordPress. What's also important for your website or your blog is doing proper what's called on-site SEO. So on-site means things that you can do within your website, things that you can control within your website, such as content and pictures and so on. So I would highly suggest using a plugin called WordPress SEO by Yoast. Yoast is the company that produces this plugin. And I've been using all-in-one SEO and a few other plugins which are really great. But just recently I started using Yoast, and it's really, really good because it gives you a lot of suggestions on your text, on the way you format your post, on the way you put in your pictures, and many, many other things. So this plugin basically helps you a lot with your SEO. It'll give you tips such as you forgot to put the name and the different attributes for this picture. You forgot to put your main keyword phrase within your title, or you have not used your main keyword phrase within your text at all. Things like that. It helps you with writing as well because it has a function which is called readability, where it kind of goes into, I wouldn't say grammar, but more of a construction of your writing, construction of your article, and it kind of explains why you should change one phrase to something else and why you should not use these kind of words but rather use these kind of words. So a lot of things that will actually help you with writing, which in the end will help you with SEO. Okay, so let's move on to the off-site SEO. This is the part of search engine optimization that is not done on your website. It's done outside of your website, and it's not really controlled by you, but kind of. Let me explain that. One of the big metrics that Google considers when ranking your website is backlinks. And there has been a lot of wars going on online between all these marketers talking about how backlinks are useless or useful, how you should get as many backlinks as you can, or how you should not care about backlinks at all. In my experience, once again, I see that backlinks do matter. Backlinks are important. And a backlink basically means is when some other website links to your website. That's basically a backlink. I strongly believe that backlinks matter, but I also understand that there's a cost to that, and there are many things that you should be paying attention to. First of all, Google does not want you to trick their system in any way. They don't want you to use any kind of loopholes. And sometimes when you get backlinks which are considered unnatural or black hat, Google might penalize your website to basically removing it from Google search index, and then your website will never show up for any keyword phrases, and this is really, really bad for your website. So you don't want to find any kind of loopholes. You don't want to once again look for shortcuts. You want natural backlinks. What makes a backlink natural? Well, first of all is when a website that is relevant to your website links to you. You can't have a website once again that talks about dogs linking to your website that talks about electronics. It just doesn't make any sense. This is an unnatural link at worst, and at best, it's just irrelevant link. So you don't want those kind of links going to your website. Another bad link is usually if you paid for it. If you paid someone to put a link to your website somewhere, usually it is bad, and it might get detected by Google at some point of time, and it might cause you some problems. Now, I'll admit that I have done this practice a few times on different websites back in a long time ago, back in 2009, 2010 maybe. I did a few tests and I bought some links. I bought some what they call high quality links to my websites, and I bought some low quality links where you would pay like $20 for 1,000 links, something like that. And in the end, I lost those websites in a way that there was simply no way of recovering them. And although I tried with one website, it wasn't worth it. So I just let them die slow and painful death. There are many companies that will offer you backlinks even now. Even if you go on Fiverr, there are people that could offer you 10, 20, 100 backlinks for only $5 or for $10. But all of those links are simply useless. And eventually, I believe Google will find them out and they will give you a penalty and maybe even get rid of your website completely. So it's really not worth it. Now, how do you earn natural, real, and relevant backlinks? That's a good question, and there are many strategies of doing so. First one, of course, is having people talk about your website. Now, every now and then I find new links to my website, new backlinks where I have never asked for them. I don't even know I've never heard of the website ever before that linked to me. But when I see them and I check out the website and I see, let's say someone is talking about podcasts and they mention my podcast, so naturally they link to me. Or someone who's talking about starting a podcast and they will link to my starting a podcast guide because they thought it was really relevant to their post, so they link to it. Those are natural links. Those are good links because the content on the two websites is very, very relevant and Google sees that. Another thing of acquiring backlinks for your website is, of course, guest posting. It's something that was really big a few years ago, and then a lot of people kind of messed it up, but it still works. Find a relevant website, find a relevant blog, relevant to your blog, and offer to write them a piece of content exclusively for them in exchange of a backlink. Basically, you write a really good quality article, and in the end, you could add something like, this article has been written by such and such who blogs weekly at this website, and you put your link. Or you could talk about something in that blog post, and then you want to link to a case study that you have done on your blog post, or you want to link to something, once again, really relevant on your website, so you just link there. And this is how you acquire those links. Another way that has been working for me is many of the episodes that I have done for this very podcast, I've had guests on those episodes, people who are interviewed, and many of them, they linked to that episode, to their own episode from their own website. So they're linking from their website to an episode on my website, and I'm getting a backlink. And it's relevant because those people are entrepreneurs, and usually they would write something, like, hey, recently I was on this podcast. It was about making money. It was about building a business. You could check it out here on Alex's website. Here you go. Boom, I get more links. And it was a big proof to me that backlinks work well, because when I started doing a podcast and I started getting more and more links from those websites, from my guests, my rankings started going up. And not just for a single episode or for some single article, for my website in general, for most of the pages on my website, rankings started going up. This is how I knew that backlinks work. They are still important. You just should not be gaming Google. You shouldn't be paying for backlinks, and you shouldn't be trying to acquire them fast and in some shady places. Basically, just try to earn backlinks naturally. Try to communicate with people. Try to get people talking about you. Try to get people talking about your content, and they will link back to you. Another place for getting not only backlinks, but also giving Google signals that your website is important, your website is worth looking at, and your website is worth ranking higher, is, of course, the social media platforms. The more people talk about you, the more people share your articles, like your articles, comment on the links that you have posted to your articles or your any kind of content, Google takes notice. They see that your website is being talked about on Twitter, on Facebook, on Pinterest, whatever that is. Google pays attention to social media signals, and the more signals you give to them, the more, of course, there will be, the higher they will be ranking you and kind of seeing you as an authority in a way. Because, well, if people are sharing your content, you must be doing something right. This content has to be interesting, it has to be helpful. So social media, don't don't forget about that. Don't forget about sharing your own stuff. If possible, create a fan page on Facebook and share all your articles there, trying to interact with people, and try to make it easier for people to share and to like your articles through social media on your own blog. For instance, if you go to the Extra Paycheck blog, I have those little Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn buttons on every article. So if someone finds an article helpful, they could just click on one of those buttons and share it on their favorite social media platform. One of my articles got over 900 likes on social media. Obviously, people liked it. And of course, I got better rankings for this article. So yes, social media matters a lot and it helps you out with your rankings. Another thing you must keep in mind when working on your rankings, working on your offsite search engine optimization, is the frequency at which you post your articles, your new content on your blog. And it's not the frequency that is the most important, is the consistency. If you post a new piece of content every single week, Google will take notice. It's good because they see that you are being active, that you are constantly posting something new, something fresh, something original, and they kind of get an idea of when to expect new content. And the more often you post, more often they would have their crawlers coming to your website and scanning it for new content. And when it sees new content, it will start ranking it. It will give more importance to your old content. So that's something that's important and something you should really keep in mind, and try to make some kind of a posting schedule for your content and stick to it. This next tip is about linking to other resources from your website. I don't know how helpful that is and how much attention Google pays to it, but it's only normal to link to other resources from your website. And preferably, once again, relevant resources and high quality authority resources. Sometimes when I write an article and I provide people with some stats, I don't just copy paste stats from the internet. I always link back to the original source of that information, of this little piece of information that I got. So if I'm telling something like 53% of Americans have listened to at least a single episode of a podcast in the past year, I'm not going to just leave it at that. I'm going to put it in quotation marks and I'm going to add a link back to the original source, which is usually some either research company or some broadcasting company, which is really high authority, and Google sees that. And once again, some people say that it's not really worth it because you're losing your authority by distributing your links to someone else. I don't agree with that. I think, once again, if it's relevant, if it's helpful to your reader, then it's important. And Google knows that. Google sees that. Google understands that you are linking to a Wikipedia page about cats when your article is about cats. It only makes sense that you link out to that website. And in the end, the main purpose here for Google, and it should be for you as well, is to create a high quality experience for your user, for your visitor. If your visitor is happy, then Google is happy. Another thing I'd like to mention here about linking to other resources, I very often link to my own resources within my own website. And I do that for several reasons. The first reason being is that I link to something that is, once again, relevant. So let's say I'm writing an article that talks about getting more backlinks to your website, and I mention once again that starting a podcast could be a great idea to get more backlinks. I'm not going to end it just there. I'm going to take those words, starting a podcast, and link it to my starting a podcast tutorial that I have done in the past. Now, if someone is reading my article on getting more backlinks and they're like, you know what, I'd like to start a podcast, they have that link right there that they could click on easily. They're taking on the page, on the tutorial that shows them how to start a podcast. Once again, I am creating an enjoyable experience for them. I'm giving them information that they want. Now, Google also values that and sees that you keep interlinking to your own content, meaning that this content is relevant to this article and this article is relevant to this article, which is really good. Internal links are important for your website. And another reason for doing so is that Google looks at the bounce rate. Bounce rate is basically a rate at which people come to your website and leave your website. It's a little bit more complicated than that, but that's the main idea. The more time people spend on your website, the better the quality of your content is, at least in the eyes of Google. So when someone comes to your website and they spend 11 seconds reading your blog post and they're like, I'm not really interested in that. But then they see a link to something else on your own website and they click on that link and they spend 5 minutes reading. Now, Google knows that this person has found value within your website and your rankings go higher. Now, if somebody comes to your website, they look at your page for 3 seconds and they realize that it's not the information they were looking for, they will leave your website. Right away, they'll go to some other website. Now imagine you just earned a great ranking. You're ranking number 3 for a phrase like how to lose weight. And you rank really high in Google. And you have thousands of people who are starting to come to your website now, but all of them leave within a few seconds. What does it tell Google? It tells them that your content is not relevant, or your content is poorly written, or it's just not what they thought it is. So within a few days or a few weeks, you will start going down in the rankings, and then you'll be down to page number 2, page number 3, and so on, until people can't find your website anymore. It has happened to many websites, even big websites, because they just got ranked for a wrong keyword phrase. And Google understands that. This is the whole bounce rate, the retention. If your visitors spend more time on your website, it tells Google that the content is good and it's kind of content they wanted. So once again, going back to interlinking your own articles. When people click on one article on your website and then they see a link within that article that takes them to another article that talks about something relevant or interesting or helpful, and they keep jumping from one page to another within your website, Google understands that and they see that these people are spending a lot of time on your website. That means your website is good, your content is helpful, and it deserves higher rankings. Last but not least, using Google Search Console. If you don't have that yet, you have to go to Google Search Console and sign up for a free account, of course, and add your website there. Now, once you add your website to Google Search Console, you could kind of see a lot of different stats, what kind of websites are linking to you, where are you linking within your website. You could also see some crawling errors and indexing problems, or if there's any problem with your website, if Google suspects that your website is getting hacked, or if Google starts seeing that you're acquiring unnatural backlinks, they will tell you within the Google Search Console, and it could help you prevent problems, it could help you fix problems, and of course, it will help you get better rankings because you'll know what's going on and you'll see what's going on. Some of the few things that you must do when you add your website to the Google Search Console. One of them is deciding if you want your website to start with the www or not. This might sound weird, but Google treats a website, let's say www.website.com and just website.com, as two completely different websites, although they are the same website. And you need to tell Google which of the two versions you prefer. Now, what this will accomplish is that, as I mentioned, since Google sees those websites, those two addresses as different websites. So let's say somebody links to your website. Someone like, I don't know, The Guardian or Huffington Post or Google itself, they find a really nice article on your website and they link to it. And they link using the www format. So they link to that website. But your other website without the www at the beginning does not earn anything from it because it's considered as a different website. So it makes things very complicated, and it's something that you shouldn't be looking too much into and something you shouldn't be trying to understand, but you should try to understand that you must choose just one format. For most of my websites, I choose the without www format because that's how I prefer to visit websites. When I go to Google, I don't type www.google.com. I just type google.com directly. I always type without those three W's at the beginning. And when you choose which version of the domain name you want to use, and you choose that within the Google Search Console, what Google does is they treat every single link, every mention of your website to, let's say, the www version, they simply redirect it to your non-W version of the website, which kind of helps you build that authority, because you're not trying to build two different websites. Now you're building just one website, one domain name, and that's what's important. So you have to do that first of all, and it's pretty straightforward and easy to do within Google Search Console. Another thing is you have to submit a sitemap of your website within the Google Search Console. And just before that, at the beginning of the episode, I mentioned the WordPress SEO by Yoast. That plugin gives you a sitemap which you could easily submit to Google. So, they make it very, very easy and straightforward. All right, so that's about it for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If something is unclear, please do go ahead and get in touch with me. Let me know, ask your questions, and I'll try to help as much as I can. Now, the show notes, as usual, will be posted at extrapodcast.com/84. This is where I will be sharing the notes from today's episode, the links, resources that I have mentioned. And this is where you could also use that comment box to ask me questions about rankings, search engine optimization, Google, and so on. All right. Also head over to extrapodcast.com/iTunes in order to subscribe to the show. Please do leave a rating and a review within the iTunes store. This will help the show tremendously. Thank you so much once again for tuning in, and I'll talk to you next Monday.